Hello and welcome to Talk to Stu live with me, Stu McGoo. Thank you all for joining me this evening, and if you are, hopefully you're having a lovely day, but obviously the point of this is to talk about your benefits and health questions, things like that. So it might be that you're feeling a bit worried and a bit stressed out with a lot of the things that are going on. So hopefully I will be able to answer a few of your questions and hopefully give you a little bit of peace of mind, if nothing else. And we'll do what we can. So big thanks to all my new subscribers. If you're a new subscriber and you're new to the channel, thank you for dropping in today. And if you're an old subscriber who's come back, thank you for coming back as well and supporting the channel. It's really appreciated. You're all lovely, lovely people. Thank you. So, first of all, I'm going to do a bit of a news update, a very short one. I've got some information from the government white paper. You may have seen my video where I commented on the news of the day when it came out after the budget, and it was a bit sort of woolly at the time because not much information was known. Somebody's asked for the volume to be increased, so my lovely assistant Becky, producer, is adjusting that. So please do comment if you can hear me a little better now or not. So yes, but the first piece of news which everybody is keen to know is when is the cost of living payment for Universal Credit, the first of 3 payments, when is it coming out? Do we have a date as yet? The DWP has released a date or provisional set of dates when they think the benefit will be released. So they have said between the 25th of April and the 18th of May. So yes, it could land at any point during that period or after it. So do keep your eyes peeled on your bank account. I'm sure you will. Everyone's watching their bank account all the time at the minute. And yeah, hopefully we will be seeing those payments coming through at that time. So that's the first bit of news and probably the most important. The government white paper that's been released has obviously thrown a lot of confusion up in the air for people who are on universal credit or on old style employment support allowance regarding the work capability assessment and the proposed changes to the whole disability benefit system. And there's been a lot of questions as to how that is actually going to work. So the first thing that has been suggested by the government that they're going to do, which is the most troubling for people, is to ramp up sanctions on universal credit. This is a bit of a concern for a lot of people because obviously sanctions don't really help. There's no real evidence to show that sanctions actually encourage people back into work or encourage compliance with conditions under universal credit, and a lot of evidence to show that they force people into destitution and have an impact on, a very negative impact on mental health. Often in some cases leading to suicide and other things, which is not good. They are primarily focusing the ramping up on this towards people who are deemed to be fit to work. So that's the direction that they're sort of heading with that. But obviously for people with things relating to, sending in fit notes and conditions, if you're in the work-related activity group, you will possibly be seeing an increase in sanctions if you don't comply with those conditions or send in your fit notes in a timely manner. Obviously, it is difficult because people can be restricted on how they are able to do that, and it can be difficult to get a fit note to the doctors at the right time. To the DWP from the doctors at the right time. So, yeah, that could be difficult. So, there are some concerns around that. However, the white paper is suggesting a lot of reforms which, if they're put into practice in the way that they may do, could actually be quite positive for a lot of people who are disabled and looking to get back into work, or looking to be assessed as not being fit to work. So one of the things that's a huge concern for people is that the proposal is that they're going to scrap the work capability assessment, and work capability will be decided through personal independence payment assessments. Now, currently, the way personal independence payment assessments work is a very difficult system. Around 50% of people who apply for personal independence payment are turned down the first time, even if they are disabled, and no matter how well they filled out their form and so on and so forth. And I've talked about that a lot in the past. It can be quite difficult. But what they're talking about doing is reforming the entire PIP system. That the entire system will be changed pretty much from the bottom to the top. So we will probably see some significant changes to the way PIP is assessed, and we will probably see some significant changes as to what is assessed in PIP. That said, there are still going to be some issues with it, as if a person suddenly is found to not qualify for PIP, then that would mean that they lose their unfit to work status. So that is an element of it. However, if that PIP assessment process is improved, then that arguably might not be so much of an issue. We shall have to see. The other element of that, which is a bit concerning, is that they're talking more about people, instead of receiving, currently you get the limited capability for work-related activity group that you're put into, and that means that you get a higher rate of out of work sickness benefit under universal credit than you would if you were found to be in the work related activity group. So and again, that is linked to PIP. So the new element, which will increase your payments, will be directly linked to PIP. So again, if you lose your PIP, then you may lose your entitlement to that element. Now, as you can probably see, my cat has just come in. So I'm going to shut the door, so bear with me 1 second. Sorry about that. We've been waiting for her to come in for quite some time. We do not have a cat flap. And so hopefully that's going to have improved the background noise. Anyway, so this extra payment will be assessed in a different way. Rather than you being assessed under the work capability assessment, which is probably much worse in many respects than the PIP assessment, rather than doing that, you will be encouraged and supported, they say, to apply for personal independence payment. A lot of the decisions around your fitness to work will also be made by your work coach. Now, there is some concerns around this because the work coach is not a health professional. That said, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is a bad thing. It may depend on the work coach you get. It may depend on the rules in place around that. But at the moment, I am aware of a number of people that under the current system, when they go to see their work coach, even though they're placed in the work-related activity group, because the work coach is aware that probably that person has been placed in that group incorrectly, they don't actually put a lot of pressure on the individual to comply with anything in order to keep their status as being in the work-related activity group. So generally, you can find that some work coaches actually can be a little bit more easygoing and judge it based on what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. That said, obviously there are going to be concerns that, is this going to be everybody? Will everyone get the same treatment? Will they be treated with respect? Will that be judged correctly? So we're still yet to see how that is going to play out, as it is just a white paper at the moment and we haven't seen any real detail. The other element which is coming into this, which I think a lot of people are pleased to see, is there's going to be a ramping up of support for people to get into work and for access to work, which currently is not the best system, for that to be improved and more things being added to that and newer ways of looking at getting people into work. Not so much that they lose entitlement to universal credit entirely, but so that they are in a position where they're able to kind of empower themselves, be a bit more a bit more independent and have a bit more sense of self-worth and value and things like that. They have said within all of this there will be a new way of assessing people that are either very severely ill, including a sort of extension of the special rules category, which is if somebody is diagnosed with terminal illness, and making it a bit easier for people who have been diagnosed with the terminal illness to qualify for special rules, because not everybody does. Also, people with very long-term life-limiting health conditions, less pressure being put on them to fill out application forms and so on and so forth. And we're seeing a little bit of a shift in that with some of the PIP assessments at the moment. Not a huge shift, but a little bit of a shift. We're also going to see, according to what they're saying, that there will be more mental health support for people who are going back into work and so on. And while this is all very good, what most disability campaigners are sort of seeing with this, and I myself see, is that the rhetoric within this white paper is very much around getting people into work and doesn't really acknowledge that there's actually a significantly large number of people who are going to be unable to work for whatever reason, and that actually they need to be supported to live an independent and a happy life without having to work. This sort of idea that you have no value or you have less value if you're not working is where it is coming through in this document by just entirely focusing on this one group. So yes, it might be good to have new digital systems set up to make PIP applications easier, to make applications for universal credit easier, to make applications for jobs easier. It might be a good thing that employers that they work with employers to create job roles that are more inclusive for people, no doubt. But also we need to see that actually those people that don't fit into that category are supported as well. And at the moment there's not enough that suggests that they will be. There is a lot of fear, as I say, around the work capability assessment being removed, and my instinct is that, well, if the Conservatives are doing it, they're going to do it more for their own benefit than the benefit of people, and certainly what they say, I wouldn't trust it. But nonetheless, if we take them at their word and things do pan out in the way that we are looking for, then hopefully things will actually improve and not worsen. But we shall see. So that's as much information as I have for today on that. I'm not going to go into any more detail with it. I'm going to do a lot more reading of this white paper to see what more I can find out, and I will do a long-winded update, longer-winded than this, in the future. Right, so let's go to questions, if there are any.
Yeah, we've got a couple. Hello,
Great.
everyone. Hi, everybody. Justin Whittle says hi to everyone as well. He's wondering what happens on the day of a PIP appeal tribunal. Will the judge have everything that you've ever sent off, including your original PIP claim form?
That's a very good question. So the short answer is yes. With all trials and tribunals and legal action in the UK, everybody has to, both parties have to share all of the documents and everything that they have on file. That can be quite useful for you, in that you can, to a certain extent, everything that you've ever sent the DWP will be sent through to the tribunal. However, what I would always say is, if you need to highlight very specific pieces of evidence, you should include that in your appeal, or send it off to the appeal before the cut-off date. Usually you'll be advised of when the last day is, or date, that you can send information in before your tribunal if you're appearing face to face. If you're doing it based on the papers, which is a different way of doing a tribunal, where you don't have to appear face to face and you just send off all the information, you don't get to know when that window is. You've just got to send it in as soon as possible. So if you want to highlight specific pieces of evidence, you can do that. The DWP, obviously they will be defending their position, so they will send in other evidence as well. But unlike in a criminal court case, for example, you won't see that evidence before the actual tribunal itself. So a tribunal itself can go a number of different ways. It entirely depends on the amount of evidence that's been sent, what the quality of that evidence is, how much time the tribunals had beforehand to look at it, and all those kind of things. So it could be that you go on the day and you'll be waiting around for quite a while, and then somebody comes out to you and says, actually, we've made the decision already, you're just going to come in and we'll tell you what the decision is. And that's it, and you don't need to do anything. Other occasions, they may want to speak to you to get your version of things, to hear what you have to say, and hear as much from you as possible. It is, after all, a hearing. So they may have points where they want to ask you questions. It's possible as well that the representative from the DWP may ask you questions too. That's a possibility. One thing that has to be remembered as well is, if you take somebody along who is there to represent you or support you with this, they may not actually be allowed to speak. So it is only in a case where you're not able to speak yourself for some reason, like you have a communication issue of some kind, whether that might be that you don't have a good command of English, or you need a translator, or a sign language translator, whatever, then that person will be allowed to speak for you. If not, they very much treat you like a witness on the witness stand, where if they have a question for you, they'll ask you and they'll expect you to answer. If you're not able to, if you turn to the person with you and say, oh, can you step in, and that, they'll say, no, we want to hear from you. So that can be a bit scary when they do that, because they can be quite firm in the way that they say it, and it almost comes across a little bit aggressive, and that can be a bit frightening. But they don't mean any harm by it necessarily. It's just their manner, because they want to be quite firm and keep the proceedings moving quite quickly. It's best to try and keep your answers as short and succinct as possible as well. Don't ramble too much like me, because that won't get you anywhere and they'll just cut you off. So if there's an integral point, don't start by saying, oh, well, this and this and this and this, before getting to your point. Make your point first and then try and back it up afterwards, because what they want is just the facts, man, sort of thing. So that's a bit of an idea of how it goes. As I say, it can be quite a stressful occasion. If you haven't put for somebody to sit in there with you and represent with you, make sure you take someone along with you on the day. Don't drink too much coffee beforehand, especially if you've got bladder problems like me. But you don't want to get yourself too anxious. Try and do things to relax and calm yourself. It's a stressful occasion. There's no way of thinking about it other than that. It is. And try and line something good for yourself to do up afterwards. Maybe going and getting a cake somewhere, or having a bath, or going out with some friends, or something like that, to kind of ease it off afterwards, because it will be stressful. Usually you probably will be told a decision. Well, not usually. Sometimes you'll be told a decision there and then on the day. Sometimes they will tell you that you need to go away and they'll write to you with the decision afterwards. It's pretty much what they decide at the time.
Okay, so this is coming to you in 3 parts. The first part is a question. The second part is a response from another one of our listeners, which is really great and we really want to encourage this. And the third part is a further comment from the original questioner upon the response. So are you ready? Great. So Louise asks, why is the cost of living support that is being given to universal credit recipients not being given to recipients on PIP? We've had a response, Pog, go away, from, sorry, it's just scrolled all the way down.
Just to explain.
John Tracy.
Yeah.
He says, Louise, PIP is not a means-tested social security benefit.
That's true.
And Louise has said, yes, I know, but it's still unfair and not logical that one sector gets the cash payment and we don't. Over to you.
Okay, right. So the just to explain to everyone in the chat, no one in the chat is called Pog. Pog is the cat, and so when anyway, so yeah, so that's that. Yeah, that is quite correct, and also what the response was there. It's difficult because it's not just as simple as it's a means-tested benefit. It's a sort of ethical question. So, for example, I receive PIP, but I am working, and at the moment in my job, I'm in a reasonable wage sort of thing. It wouldn't really be fair for me to receive that cost of living payment because, you know, I am earning, it's a good wage, and at the moment it's only a temporary job. And, you know, we get benefits through work, you know, in what we do. We have health benefits and all that kind of stuff going on. So for me, as a PIP claimant, it wouldn't be fair for me to get, I don't believe, an extra sort of £300 to somebody who's really living hand to mouth. The difficulty is that a lot of people who are receiving PIP aren't necessarily working or aren't working in a job that's paying very well, and so actually they're struggling. They're not getting paid as well as I am. And so that's really difficult. What I would suggest is if you're in that position, if you are working and receiving PIP, then you should be looking at the assessment and as to whether or not you would qualify for universal credit. Even if you are on a low income, it might be, for example, that with everything being uprated by 10.1% in April, those qualifying brackets are going to shift slightly, and actually if your employment hasn't increased your payments by that amount, it might be that you qualify for it now or you didn't before. That's one thing to look at. So, you know, in the link for the description of this, there is the benefits calculator. Do use that to check your entitlement. That's one element of it. If you're on employment support allowance with PIP, then you should also get that cost of living payment as well, the old style employment support allowance. Whether new style employment support allowance, which is not the one on universal credit, whether you get it with that or not, I can't remember offhand. I don't think you do, but that's the one that's contributory based. But it may be that I need to check that. But yeah, so have a look at your situation and see if actually maybe you do qualify for it and you don't realise. That would be what I would say. But there can be, I mean, you know, some people that are, you know, very disabled and earn a lot more than I do, but still get paid PIP, because that's partially how you prove, legally speaking, that you are disabled, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me or them to get that level of money. You know, I think the entire system's wrong personally, but you know, that's the way they assess it.
So we've got Kid Goku back with us. Hello.
Oh, hello again.
And they have asked, Is PIP going up to £691?
Is PIP going up to £691? I can't say exactly what PIP is increasing to. I don't think it's going up to that much. Let me think, what is the rate? Oh, let me get my book and check the rates. I don't think it's going to be going up that much, but it will be going up 10.1%. So it depends on the level that you are getting. Let me just have a look. Where is it? PIP, 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 PIP. There we go. So I'm just going to do a quick calculation here with my calculator. Yeah, so that would be about correct, actually. Yeah, you're about bang on with that. So yeah, it will be going up to that amount. If you are on the enhanced rate for both parts, yes, it will be increasing.
And guys, I will get to all of your questions soon, but just to stick with Kid Goku for now, will they also get the cost of living payment as they are on universal credit sick?
If they're on universal credit, then yes, they will get the payment in, as we said, between April the 25th and May the 18th, in theory. And they'll also, if they're on PIP as well, they'll get another £150 cost of living payment in June, July-ish. Again, no date's been really set on that at the moment.
Okay, so again, we've seen a lot of help amongst the group themselves here, which is fabulous. So thanks, Louise, for your help with Adam. So Adam has said, I'm on income-related ESA and in the full support group and receiving the disability income guarantee payment, and have recently been diagnosed with arthritis in both knees. Can I get PIP? Hold your horses a second. Louise says, I'd say yes, as it's a diagnosis and you need to provide info on how it affects your daily living. Adam has also been told by their doctor that they have lower leg vascular issues and their feet are always icy cold and very painful. Is this also claimable? And Louise has said, yes, the more info, the stronger your case to receive it. Any comments?
Yes, a few comments on that. So first of all, icy feet in and of themselves aren't going to get you PIP. Indeed, I get icy feet placed on me most nights, and yes, I don't think Becky's going to be getting PIP for that. What I will say is this: getting PIP is not about what health conditions you have. Getting PIP is about how your health conditions affect you in carrying out your daily living duties. So yes, as much information as possible is good. It's a very strange system. All disability benefits, even DLA, is a very strange system because, as I've said many times, if you have a health problem, then the fact that you have that health problem will have an impact on you, and that's how you know that you've got one and go to the doctor in the first place. You know, if you didn't, you wouldn't have gone to the doctor. So everything is going to have an impact. But when you start getting multiple health conditions, things start to add up. Generally speaking, anybody who is deemed unfit to work is probably going to have a significant impact on their daily living by whatever health problem it is that they have, and they should probably think about applying for PIP and get support to do that, because it's really important that that PIP form is filled out correctly in the first place, and that also that you can get the ongoing support with a mandatory reconsideration and possibly an appeal as well. So don't just think of PIP as that first application. Certainly not the way it is at the moment. Hopefully it'll improve, as I say, from that white paper, but as it is at the moment, pretty much 50% of people out of hand are turned down for it. I've got I deal with people all the time who I did their form, or I've been there with them through the process. I can see them and I know how disabled they are, and they just get 0 points across the board straight away, and the most utter nonsense written in the assessment thing, and you just think, you're just making stuff up, mate. Not for the claimant, obviously, by the DWP. So what I would say is really think about how these conditions affect your daily living. So arthritis in the knees, that's going to affect you with like getting dressed. It's going to affect you with standing up to prepare a meal. It's going to affect how you stand up in the shower when you take a shower. It's going to probably affect you getting in and out of the bath. Things like that. It's certainly going to affect your mobility, the distance that you can walk, how long you can keep that up for, all of those kind of things. It will affect things like sleep, but for some, as Becky's just said in the background, it will affect your sleep and stuff like that. The issue with sleep, that's something that used to be looked at in disability living allowance, isn't looked at in PIP, and I've always thought that is a serious mistake, because lack of sleep really does have a significant impact on your ability to do any task during the day, particularly things like driving or operating heavy machinery, stuff like that. And it will have a knock-on effect to all your other health conditions as well. If you have stomach problems, for example, and you don't sleep properly, then probably your digestion for the next day is going to be pretty rubbish as well. So that might then affect how you use the toilet and the bathroom, or how long you're in the toilet and the bathroom, or whether you need to wash afterwards, things like that. So as much information as you can put into how the conditions affect your daily living activities is what's key.
I've got quite a good number of questions coming in. Okay, so unfortunately it scrolls down a page and I have to keep scrolling between pages.
Okay, that's fine.
It's a little bit irritating, sorry Stu. Okay, so Tanya has asked, with a PIP review, do I need to send the evidence in again from my last claim? And Louisa suggested that she phone up the DWP PIP helpline, when she should be able to find that number on Google.
Well, you can. Yes, you can find that number on Google. It should be on any documents that you've got sent through to you. It will be on the front of your PIP review form that's been sent through to you as well. In theory, you shouldn't need to do all of that. With the PIP review form, it is very much a case of, if a condition is the same, then you must write it in the box that's, not the condition, if the way the condition affects your daily living activities is still the same as the last time you had the assessment, you should write in the box, nothing has changed. They will have all of your old evidence on file, and they should still consider that. Do not leave a box blank if in that box you scored points before. Okay, that is something that's very important. Don't leave it blank, otherwise they'll assume that everything is fine now and you don't have any issues in that area. You must write in everything is the same as it was previously, or if it's got worse in some way and you're actually more impacted, so say previously your walking distance was 50 to 100 metres, but now it's 20 to 50 metres, make that clear. Not all of the questions in that form, particularly mobility, for example, are for you to just put, oh, well, it's the same as before, sort of thing. You do have to go into all that detail again, certainly with the mobility one. But yes, the idea with the review system is it is a bit faster than previously. People do not necessarily have to have a telephone assessment, and for people where everything is pretty much the same and nothing has changed, and when they look at the type of health conditions they were diagnosed with, they can see that they're permanent health conditions, then generally those will be decided on fairly rapidly and without the need for further assessment and things like that. But obviously it's an opportunity for you to show, particularly if you're on the standard rates for things and things have got worse for you, that actually your needs have increased and therefore your entitlement may have increased as well. So use it as an opportunity for that. Don't leave a box blank unless it was blank previously. And yeah, that's about the size of it. And definitely, if you've got any questions, do phone the helpline and ask them. They will be able to tell you if it's used. It should be used, and if for some reason they changed your award, you can ask for mandatory reconsideration and appeal, and you can ask to see what evidence was used in making that decision. It might take a while for that to come through to you, but you can have a look at that, and if you feel that evidence hasn't been considered that was considered before, then you can resubmit it at that point.
So Stuart's in a really difficult position, Stuart Mills. He had £6,000 taken from him because the NHS kept him from meeting a tribunal arranged by the DWP when he was in NHS care. Now he has no money to take them on. He wondered if he can take them to court.
That's a very difficult one. I would say you would need to speak to a specialist legal advisor on that situation. Certainly it would depend on when this occurred and how long ago it was. If you're still in the period between when that decision was made, so if you don't attend a tribunal that you said that you're going to appear in, they will pretty much award in the favour of the person who was there. If you were prevented from doing so by the NHS and they didn't have a good reason for doing that, then you may be able to argue that it's a medical negligence claim. However, if you start looking at medical negligence solicitors, you have to be quite careful. It's good to look for somebody who's quite local to you that is a proper medical negligence solicitor and not one of these online no-win, no-fee things, because a no-win, no-fee person will basically only look for situations where it's really obvious, like, you had surgery and you woke up and they'd left a pair of gloves inside you or something and sewed you up or something like that. So they want the really obvious things. Stuff like this might not pass that test, whereas a local solicitor who's not part of a big firm that specialises, a big corporation that specialises in medical negligence claims as part of their offer to the public, and doesn't do that on a no-win, no-fee basis, may be able to take that on and may do so pro bono if they believe there's something serious has occurred that's prevented you from doing that. So it would be good to look around in that area. In terms of the DWP and the tribunal, if you didn't attend and you haven't forwarded information as to why you didn't attend within the month after they make the decision, it may well be that they won't reactivate the tribunal and begin that process again. They'll have probably moved on to something else, and the opportunity to appeal that decision may have passed. If you are still within that period, then try and appeal that if possible. Every decision could be reversed if you speak to the right person within the right time frame, and you can make the case and evidence the fact that the NHS did prevent you from doing that. If the DWP have just taken the money straight back out of your account, there's probably not a good way of dealing with that, and again you would need to speak to a specialist solicitor to see if you had a case for doing that, and they're quite hard to come by.
I mean, these are such extenuating circumstances. Could he possibly also go to the PALS at the local NHS trust where he was, the patient liaison service, to place a complaint and ask them to look into it and for them to contact the DWP?
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know that they would contact the DWP, but certainly if if it was a hospital and it was part of the NHS trust and it was them that prevented you from doing so, then yeah, that could be worth doing. But if it's through NHS continuing healthcare and it's a different provider, then that might be a difficult thing. But whatever the complaints process is, whether that be through Patient Advice and Liaison Service, aka PALS, or Patient Relations Service, PRS, which tends to be attributed to trust, whether it's through that or through your GP surgery or through whatever provider is providing your NHS continuing healthcare, find out what that complaints process is and begin that process. Probably a professional solicitor is going to advise that you do that before they can do anything anyway. The chances are with that kind of level of complaint through those systems, they're unlikely to pay out at that stage, but if you can make a good case, it's possible that they might. So yeah, good tip.
Stu, we've got Kid Goku. Another question: is universal credit sick getting stopped by the government?
Well, if in a fashion, yes, it is, or that's what the white paper says, but it's not come into effect at the moment. That's what I was whittering on about at the start of the session today. The white paper suggests that they're going to remove the work capability assessment and those elements of universal credit, but there will be an additional premium added for those that qualify for it. They have also said, and this was a point I wanted to make earlier but didn't, that there will be transitional protection in place for people who are currently receiving the out of work sickness benefit through universal credit. They will get transitional protection, which will mean that their rate will stay the same when that is brought into effect, and it will primarily affect new people that are applying for universal credit for the first time at that point. So that transitional protection will be in there.
Got a question that I'm not sure you're going to be able to answer because it relates to Scotland. So Steve Armstrong says, "Hi Stu, Becky, I received a winter payment from the Scottish Government about 3 weeks ago. Does this mean that the DWP has passed my ESA and PIP to them to take over? Thank you."
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that for certain. Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, most of those things are being handled through the Scottish version of the DWP, which, to be fair, operates pretty similarly at the moment. There's not the big changes that we were hoping to see there. But again, it's not something I have a great deal of information on. I'd say probably. That's all I can say. Yeah, it will be a case of needing to find people that can advise you on that locally. Sorry. But if you use the Turn to Us benefits calculator, if you have a look through the Turn to Us website, there is a tool that will allow you to identify people that can support you locally and can answer those questions for you. That might be an alternative to the citizens' advice.
We have another one of our regulars, Sam.
Okay.
Sam Little. Sam has ESA support group. She's still employed by a supermarket with sick fit note. If she were to leave the job, would ESA still be the same? She was diagnosed with ME/CFS.
Which group is she in, sorry?
ESA support group.
She's in the ESA support group, but she's working.
Well, she's still employed, but she's on. She's with the sick/fit note.
Right.
And if she left the job, would ESA still be the same? So she's employed, but not working.
I'm a little bit confused as to how that's. So So Sam, if you can provide a bit more information as to whether you're in, whether that's old style ESA or universal credit, and whether it's the work-related activity group or the support group you're in, if it's old style, or if it's the new one, if you're in the work-related activity group or the limited capability for work-related activity group. If you know those things, if you can just pop a little bit more information in there around that, then hopefully I can answer that question. Yeah.
So it's not universal credit, no SSP, old system, old style ESA.
Old style ESA and support group or work-related activity group.
I'm sure we will hear soon. So not universal credit, no statutory sick pay, old style ESA. Should I move on to another quick one and then revert back to this?
Well, I'll give you a couple of possibles. So if you're in the support group, that's only usually somebody who's deemed unfit to work. So if you're in the support group on old style ESA and you are working, that would suggest that you're support group. It is a support group. Then that would suggest that you are fit to work. So that's a bit of an unusual one. I would check as to that's a bit of an unusual one. Could you drop me a message about that? stu.mcgoo.info@gmail.com, and I'll send you an answer to that that way. Would that be okay, do you think?
So I've got a few questions coming in. Sorry. If universal credit is getting stopped, will they be able to go on ESA sick? This is from Kid Goku.
Oh, right. If they're deemed unfit to work and they've got a doctor's note, yes, but you won't be able to move over to employment support allowance, the old style. You'll have to still stay on universal credit.
So Joanne Wall has just been awarded PIP, but they took the SGO allowance off her.
SGO allowance, SGO. Let me just find out what that acronym stands for, because my brain is starting to fail me. SGO.
Can you also just tell me your email address, please, again?
It's stu.mcg00.info@gmail.com. Please do bear in mind, if I haven't said to you specifically, drop me an email about this. If you email me, it doesn't necessarily mean I can answer your question in that way. It's only this specific one. I am very sorry about that, because
it's Special Guardian Order Allowance.
Yes, I found that. So that is something that is assessed and given by the local authority, and that's based on the income you have coming in when calculating an SGO financial allowance. I'm going to be honest, I don't know a great deal about this, so I'm not going to answer this question in detail. My understanding is that PIP should not be in any means test ever calculated as income. It is something that's separate to that. So I would say you should query this. I may be wrong. on that point, but you should query this. It might be that they've just looked at the income and just looked at the numbers and not seen what that income is and taken it away. But if they are aware that it is PIP, it may be that that is something that is a part of the SGO that I'm not aware of, because this isn't something that I've dealt with personally. So I would need to do a little bit more research before I could answer that question. But you should definitely query it, because I do think that's a bit odd. I wouldn't have thought that they should have done that, but I may be wrong.
Okay, so Lambretta was underpaid ESA for 7 years. They were given the money back. Can they take, or should they get, legal action against the DWP?
They gave the money back. If the DWP have given you the money back and it's all back pay, there's not going to be a lot that you can get out of any court action, and it will cost you a lot, and it will cost you stress and worry. So I would say it's probably not worth it at this stage if they've given you the money back. If they haven't given you the money back, and you can find somebody to represent you pro bono, then certainly I would do that. But if they never apologise, but if they have turned around and said, oh, actually, we should have given you this much and we give you a backdated payment that covers that, then as far as the law is concerned, they've met their responsibilities, and there's very little else you could do. I mean, we've seen people that have been so affected by a lack of of the DWP making mistakes and taking money off them that they shouldn't, that they've died because they couldn't afford to, keep a fridge to keep their insulin cold and things like that. And they've never, their families have never had a successful court action against the DWP over things like that. So I don't think it would be worth your time. Unfortunately, sorry to say. It would just cause you more stress
as well. Yeah,
Sorry?
I've had my run-ins with the DWP,
we all have.
And then you expect to be treated like a human being, and I certainly wasn't. And when I'd proven that they were incorrect, there was not a hint of an apology at all.
No,
they just
it's galling.
Won't.
It's galling. Yeah. They're bastards.
They are.
They just go, oh yeah, there we go, and you're like, oh, well, thanks. Then you just put me through 7 years of hell in this person's case. And, living hand to mouth, and now I've got the money back. Okay, well, that's fine, but that doesn't doesn't undo all the harm. And if you are, like, in a position where you've got to have good nutrition or whatever, and you're on low income, and you're having to go to food banks and all that kind of stuff, it has done you harm. But unfortunately, the law is set up so that it just supports this system. And, there's if you want to get further legal advice, I'd be happy to be corrected and proved wrong, but I genuinely don't think it's going to be worth the effort, and that you'll have much that you can do there.
And the extra stress.
Just
thinking about it makes my blood boil.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing. I will just say to people, we're coming up to 8 o'clock, and we're trying to keep it to a tight hour today because we haven't eaten, and we're starting to get a bit hungry. So I'll take a couple more questions, and what I might do, if people really want this, and please do leave comments and stuff, then maybe we'll do like a more regular thing rather than doing it once a month. We'll do it twice a month if people think that might be a good idea. We'll see. So couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up.
2 Stew Tuesdays.
2 Tuesdays in the month.
Anyway, so Jackie, hi. In England, will attendance allowance affect housing benefit and council tax with a family member claiming universal credit carer element? Thank you.
Well, attendance allowance is, like PIP, is a disability benefit and shouldn't be included in any assessments for any means tests. Generally, you should always tell them that you're getting it and tell them specifically what it is. And if you're having a housing benefit, sometimes housing benefit is assessed separately outside of universal credit, depending on circumstances, if and council tax support as well. It will be factored into the calculation but then disregarded. So yeah, that will come into it. Again, with universal credit, you should inform them of that, and that person has that. If a person is getting the carers element in universal credit, they shouldn't really be getting that without the person already having attendance allowance in place, if that's the person that they're caring for. If they were getting it before that person had attendance allowance awarded, they may have to pay some back. If they're getting it after the fact, then that will mean more than likely that the person with attendance allowance wouldn't be able to apply for a severe or enhanced disability premium, because somebody is caring for them. That's only usually due to a person who gets attendance allowance, who's maybe on pension credit, who lives on their own, and doesn't have somebody caring for them, or something like that. So yeah, it's worth keeping everybody informed, and quite often these things don't come out straight away. They come out 3 or 4 months after the fact, but you then find out whether or not it affects your entitlement to certain things. So, you know, as soon as something extra is awarded, pop it in your universal credit journal and let them know, and they'll make a decision if they need to.
So Rick Shaw, who commented last live stream about PIP and the 65 plus age group, they sent a review form back in October and are still waiting for the decision. Do you have any thoughts about this?
This is a how long is a piece of string game, unfortunately. There's such backlogs with things. As I've said previously to people, if you're in the review process, until they make a decision, your PIP award will continue up to the point that they make the decision. Okay, so they won't just stop the benefit until you get that letter come through saying that they've decided you don't get it. Hopefully, as I was saying earlier, it will continue and you'll have it awarded, but it could be anything from 3 months through to I've known a few people that have waited 18 months to get their review done. So yeah, and that's with the old style form, because obviously the new style review form hasn't been around for 18 months. But yeah, it can go on.
I think we might even be able to fit in the one more. Just got to scroll back up. Sorry,
Yep, one more question.
Bear with me. Okay. So Gary O'Sullivan. Hi, Stu. Currently get PIP enhanced for daily and mobility, but on LCW for universal credit. Will I receive more when the white paper goes through, and when will that be?
No idea when that's going to be. Will you receive more? I very much doubt it. I think the payments will be around the same as what they are at the moment. As I say, there will be transitional protection in place so that people will essentially stay on the same rates once the new system is set up. As I've commented in the past, transitional protection isn't linked to, or the amount in the transitional protection isn't linked to what's it called? Flipping heck. Inflation isn't linked to inflation. So as inflation goes, that amount stays the same. It doesn't go up. The rest of it does, but not that transitional protection bit. So over time, you get less, but that's usually 1 or 2 or 3 years before that really, where you really feel the pinch of that. Essentially, you should get the same amount if you change over onto the other system. There shouldn't be any change there. I can't see it going up. I imagine that they will keep they will work it out so that it works out as the same amount of money for people overall who are new to it, so that there's parity really with those things. That said, a lot of people on old style ESA missed out on the payment through the pandemic, didn't they? So the £20 a week uplift that went on through the pandemic, people on old style ESA completely missed out on that.
Does that mean there'll be no disability premium on Universal Credit?
There will be a disability premium. It will be assessed quite differently. It will be linked to PIP. So where that at the moment there is a disability premium that is linked to PIP under Universal Credit at the moment. But the way that that's going to work is going to change. So that will also be about a person's fitness to work as well. Again, it's still very muddy, and I haven't had a chance to go through the white paper in a great deal of detail. I've only just sort of been reading through it today. And my understanding is that they are going to have a new disability element to Universal Credit, which is going to replace what currently exists in what they call ESA, or what we call ESA, even though it's not called ESA now. So that's going to replace that. Whether that affects the severe disability premium or the enhanced disability premium, whichever it is, under Universal Credit, then we're not 100% sure at the moment. And this is another one of those areas where disability campaigners are saying we need more clarity on this, because we're getting flooded with questions and we don't know the answers to them. So I don't know. Sorry, that's not really very clear on my part, is it?
I think you need some dinner.
I think I need some dinner. Yeah.
I can tell when you're flagging.
Yes.
You're like me. It's just like, feed me now.
Yes. Yes, it is time to
I'll
eat.
throw a Snickers at you.
Yeah, that would be fine. So thank you to everybody who has tuned in tonight and asked questions.
Thank you.
And I hope I've been able to answer some of them to a certain extent that would be helpful. As I say, the link in the description of this is for the Turn to Us benefits calculator. But if you have a nose around on the Turn to Us website, there are a lot of resources there, and you can use a support locator to find out local support for you. If you're doing a personal independence payment application or anything like that, even filling out a UC50, some of those are still being done at the moment. Do try and get support with it as much as possible. If you're going through an appeal, try and get support. I know support is thin on the ground, but if you can get in there, get on the waiting list, and it will strengthen everything for you. And Citizens Advice Bureau as well, do give them a try. Some of them are good, some not so much, but they'll at least tell you what you need to know, things like that. And also think about your circumstances as well. Do you qualify? Were you an ex-service person? You might get support from SAFA with things, or Veterans UK, stuff like that. So have a think. And keep Googling. And if people like the idea of me doing one of these a bit more often, and or on specific topics as well, we could look at doing that. So yeah, let us know your thoughts. Thank you to everyone also for their kind comments, and of course my biggest thanks to Becky, who is doing all the hard producing work behind the camera for me.
No, it's my pleasure.
And yes, we'll see you all again soon. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.